There you go.
Welcome to our annual dinner. My name is Pietra, also known as Patty Zaffram. I am the president of the Law Alumni Association and a partner at Harris Beach here in the Buffalo office. I'd like to welcome you and now introduce our head table this evening. Left to right, we start with Doug Dimitrov, class of 1989. He's the recipient of the Private Practice Award and a partner at Phillips Lytle. He is chair also of the Dean's Advisory Council. Next to him, we have the Honorable Craig D. Hanna, class of 1995, and recipient of the Judiciary Award and Associate Judge of Buffalo City Court. Judge Hanna is also a former director of the Law Alumni Association. Seated next to Judge is Karen Nicholson, class of 1989. And she's recipient of the Public Service Award and Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Elder Law and Justice. Next to Karen is Rodney Grabowski. He's the University of Buffalo Vice President for Advancement. Next, we have our Dean Aviva Abramovsky, 19th Dean of the University at the Buffalo School of Law and its first female dean. Seated next to the Dean is Stephen Weiss, class of 1991. Recipient of the Community Service Award, and he's managing partner of Cannon, Heyman, and Weiss. He is also a member of the Dean's Advisory Council. Next, we have Mark Brown, class of 1999, and also president-elect of the Law Alumni Association. He's a partner with Goldberg Segala, and Mark will assume the role of president effective June 1st, Mark. Next, we have, to my left, Jason Ilatowski, class of 2007. He's a member of the Law Alumni Association Board of Directors, and he's co-chair of the annual dinner committee, and he will co-present tonight's awards with Liz. Jason is Associate General Counsel, Censors for PZP Piezotronics Incorporated. Next, our other co-chair of the dinner, Elizabeth Krangle, class of 2007. She's a member of the Law Alumni Association Board of Directors, and she's a partner at Duke Holtzman Podiatrists and Crescens LLP. She will co-present tonight award presentations. Next, to Elizabeth's left, we have Bradley Gayton, class of 1991. He's our recipient of the Business Award. And he is Group Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer, and General Counsel of Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan. Next, we have the Honorable Frank P. Gerasi Jr., recipient of the Non-Alumnus Award, and he is Chief Judge of the United States District Court in the Western District of New York. And last but certainly not least, we have Eileen Fleischman, Vice Dean at the Law School and the first and only Executive Director of the Law Alumni Association. Tonight's a special night for us every year. I'd like to thank those of you who've joined the Law Alumni Association. If you haven't noticed, some of us have these wonderful stars here. If you'd like to join and get your star tonight, please see one of the staff members so you too can be shiny. It's critical for alumni to support the association's tuition scholarships, to provide law students with career advice, mentoring, and connections, and to help recruit prospective students. and to also participate on admissions and career panels. And these are just a few of the things and the many ways the Law Alumni Association makes a huge difference in the lives of our students. As the only public law school in the state of New York, we owe it to our students to reinforce the history of academia and success that our students have clearly, based on our graduates, had through the years. So please join if you haven't, and encourage your fellow colleagues. Next, I'd like to introduce Dean Abramowski. Aviva Abramowski is the law school's 19th permanent dean and the first woman to hold the position. She's an expert in insurance law, commercial law, regulation of financial entities, and legal ethics, and she has written numerous articles and legal treatises, including authoring McKinney's Uniform Commercial Code Forms for New York. She's the current editor of LSN Insurance Law, Legislation and Policy. She served as the editor and academic advisor for the Connecticut Insurance Law Journal from 2010 to 2011. She also contributed to the British Insurance Law Association's 2013 book prize winner, The Research Handbook on International Insurance and Regulation. And her scholarship has been recognized as a litigation essential by LexisNexis. Abramowski has served twice as an academic evaluator for the American Bar Association's Federal Judiciary Committee, once for U.S. Supreme Court nominee Samuel Alito, and again for U.S. Supreme Court nominee Sonia Sotomayor. Among other professional leadership positions, she has acted as chair and later executive board member of the Insurance Law Section of the American Association of Law Schools, and as chair of its Committee on Sections. She has also served on the American Association of University Women's International Fellowship Selection Panel. Prior to her appointment as Dean of UB Law School, Abramowski was the Kaufman Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation and an Associate Dean at Syracuse University College of Law, where she led the school's internationalization efforts. So without further ado, our Dean, accomplished, successful, we're very lucky to have her, Dean Abramowski.
Well, Patty always makes me sound so good. I want to thank you all for coming this evening, and thank you to the Law Alumni Association for inviting me to be part of tonight's event. I'm honored to be seated among this evening's distinguished award recipients, who are incredible examples of the very best of our legal community. I'd like to take a moment to extend my appreciation to Patty Zafram and the entire Law Alumni Association and Gold Group Board of Directors for all your hard work. In so many ways, Dean Eileen reminds me that the Law Alumni Association is the backbone of our alumni community. You do a fantastic job bringing us together and reminding each one of us the success of our law school is dependent upon the commitment of our alumni. Patty already deserves another round of applause as she led the association while continuing her fast-paced practice at Harris Beach, and I have heard has simultaneously had 2 children, giving birth to the future law firm of Zafram and Zafram. Congratulations, Madam President. While I particularly do not hold the multitasking skills that Patty has, what I have noticed this past year as your dean is that our alumni in Western New York are beyond incredibly dedicated to this school. There are moments like this where I get to look around this crowd and recognize that there are more than a few familiar faces. I have spent quite a bit of time reaching out to you this year, and almost universally, all of you have come out to see me. It has been a true honor to get to know you individually and as groups, to learn about the practice of law here in Western New York and the power and strength of the UB Law Alumni Association throughout the state and this country. I am deeply honored to be able to stand here today at what is the keynote event, and I hope that this is but the beginning of an ongoing and pleasant and future enriching relationship. Right now, I have to point out, and we're going to speak a little bit about one of our keynote initiatives that we've done this year. I'm particularly proud of our Alumni Mentor Program, and I recognize that the Law Alumni Association is the driving force behind its success. Although the program had been around in many iterations for many years, it has reached a new level of focus this past year. The past presidents of this association have made it their mission to assist all of our graduating students, every single one, as they prepare to enter the practice of law. So I want to thank the Dean's Advisory Committee, members of the Gold Group, members of the Law Alumni Association, and every single one of you who has volunteered to become a mentor for our students. Because you need to remember what it was like when you yourself were a student of law. It is an intimidating idea for a law student to figure out how to navigate many different paths to find that rung to success. All of you here are accomplished, many in many different ways. And I ask you to remember not to lift that ladder up behind you. If you have not yet been asked to be a mentor, I'm asking you now. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that we reach our hand out to that next generation, because I have met the students, and they are incredible. At the end of the day, it is the inspiration of making sure that the UB Law students have the greatest life outcomes of any students in any law school in this country. And while our education is already exemplary, with the assistance of this distinguished group, their life outcomes will be not just equal to, but outpace, as it should, those of our peer competitors. I'm pretty certain you've already been asked by Eileen, but if you haven't, you will be. So we all understand the power of a good mentor, and a little bit of the comments I'm going to give to you are personal to some of our awardees. I'm sure each of them can point to one individual or more who has had a resounding impact on your career and on your life. If you think back yourselves, the odds are good that every single person in this room is here because someone on the road of their life took the chance to help them, took the chance on them to invest, took the chance to have that extra meeting, to coach them, to listen, to assuage their anxieties, and to help them step forward and up that ladder of success. I know I have been helped. I know the people at this podium have been helped. I know this because in preparation for this dinner, video interviews were conducted with each honoree, and I have to say thank you so much, all of you, for taking the time for doing that. They were incredibly moving. Every interview shared a common thread, a reference to someone who mentored them. No one gets to be where they are alone. Often not as part of any official mentoring program, although I hope that ours will be exemplary, but someone took the time to encourage them, to teach them, and to inspire them. For Judge Craig Hanna, it was Judge Kevin Carter, UB Law class of '89, an attorney at the time who helped Judge Hanna, a young man from Buffalo, prepare his application for law school. That was his first step towards what became an impressive legal and judicial career. I am sure that he will be happy to speak about that. For Stephen Weiss, he was attorney Herman Lusk, UB Law class of '49, who shared and nurtured Stephen's dream of creating the boutique affordable housing law firm that he manages today. A lot of them look surprised that I actually listened to the video. But I did, and I encourage all of you to do so and visit our website so that you have the opportunity to learn that. For me, it was Gene Anderson. Many of you know that I started my career in practice at Anderson, Kill & Olick. Some of you might have heard of Gene Anderson. He was the inspiration for the movie The Rainmaker. Remember Rudy Baylor, who goes up against the health insurance companies who are denying all those cases? He used to wear a button, "I'm a Rudy Baylor lookalike." He was a character and a half, colorblind, so he only wore black and white suits. Grew up dirt poor in Oregon, always wore cowboy boots, and practiced in Manhattan. Okay? So when I was just a first-year associate, fresh out of law school, completely wet behind the ears, I came in there to sue insurance companies because Lord knows that's a lot of fun. If you haven't done it yet, I recommend you try it. Okay? And Gene, who was the name partner, corner office guy, right? You think he'd be real difficult to meet. Instead, he would always tell stories with the different new associates, always took that time. And he gave every single one of us a chance to do something creative in our own work in litigation. You know, not just an assignment, but why don't you try something here? And I took that up. You know, I always said, sure thing, boss. I can come up with an argument for that. And he said, Aviva, you know, you're really pretty smart. And I said, thanks, Gene. Okay? And he kept doing that until I was before the Second Circuit, till I was before all these different courts, till I was presenting before the Ontario Barristers Association. And never once did Gene Anderson say anything other than, with creativity, you can find a way to get that insurance company to pay. Okay? All right? And most of the time he was right. He passed away not that long ago, even though he did help me personally and my family. My own father passed away. with our own insurance coverage case. And that's what I'm trying to tell you here, is that mentors are more than just a formal relationship that you get through some kind of matching program, which is important. Mentors are the people who are there for you at the very anxious times and turnings of your life. So I want to thank everyone here who has acted as a mentor, whether formally or informally, to any one of our students over the course of this law school's distinguished history. And of course, I want to continue to ask you to step up to do that again. Anyway, there is no doubt that a legal education has many benefits. No matter how difficult our days may be or how heavy the responsibilities we may carry, we know that we are privileged to be members of an incredibly rewarding and impactful profession. With that privilege comes responsibility. Be certain to carry that forward. Help me help them succeed, and we can all move forward together to bring what is already an incredible law school to even greater heights, and more importantly, to hold forth that promise that we always give to our students, that you made the right choice. No, in fact, you made the best choice, because UB creates lawyers like the people in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. Next, I have the great pleasure of introducing Rodney Grabowski. He is Vice President for Advancement, University at Buffalo, who offers remarks on behalf of the university. Rod Grabowski is UB's Vice President for Advancement, a position he assumed just last December. In his role, he works closely with the President, Provost, Deans, and other university leaders and volunteers to lead the work of development and alumni engagement at the University of Buffalo. With more than 25 years of experience working in higher education advancement, Rod has a long history of leading successful comprehensive campaigns. Prior to arriving at UB, Rod was the president of the University of Cincinnati Foundation, where he successfully concluded the Proudly Cincinnati $1 billion campaign. Just under 2 weeks ago, Rod led us through the successful public launch of Boldly Buffalo, the campaign for UB, the university's first comprehensive campaign in over a decade. Working together with advancement staff from across the university, Rod is leading the team that will ultimately raise $650 million for the University of Buffalo. Rod?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It truly is my pleasure to stand before you and to offer greetings on behalf of our president, Satish Tripathi. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. However, I am more than proud to stand here before you to issue greetings on his behalf. And also, I wanted to congratulate the Alumni Association. This is your 56th annual Alumni Association dinner. You should truly be proud of this incredible accomplishment, because it's this type of an event that gives the character, the essence, the ethos of what the UB Law School is and how our alumni are connected back. And so as we stand here tonight to honor those that surely deserve this distinction, it's befitting that all of you are here to celebrate that. I also wanted to thank the Dean for her incredible leadership, and to Pietra for her outstanding leadership of the Alumni Association, and also to Mark Brown, the President-elect. You know, Mark, fortunately this dais is much wider. Unlike the Jekyll Awards in New York City this past January, we almost fell off the stage. I think you're going to be safe up here and you won't need a lawyer. I also wanted to offer congratulations tonight to our 6 honorees. It's because of your experience and your dedication to UB and to your profession that you are doing proud for your law school. It is your professional practice that is distinguished and shines a bright star and light on what UB Law School stands for. And to the Law School Alumni Association, you've been presenting these awards since 1963. Thank you for doing this, because it's important that we recognize those that have been accomplished in this profession. You know, we are honestly very proud of all of our law graduates that practice here in Erie County, but also around the greater Buffalo-Niagara region, throughout the state of New York, throughout the country, and you know, we even have a law school alumni that are around the world. And to this, it's truly incredible. If you don't know anything about our entire alumni population for UB, we have over 250,000 graduates. That well over half of them are here in Western New York, but we have them that are representative of all 50 states and in numerous countries throughout the world. But it's these types of events that connect you back to UB, your alma mater. It's your place to call home, and it's your place that we want you to be connected with, and we want you to be the ambassador for this institution. So whether it be for students to potentially want to enroll in our law school, or for other graduates to want to be engaged in our activities that Viva talked about, you are our ambassadors, and we're calling upon you to help us. I think that as we think about our engagement with the university, it's important for you to also know that nearly 13,000 alumni gave back to the university this past year alone. But one of the important factors that I also think that we oftentimes overlook is we may focus on the dollars, but we also need to focus on the time and the value that all of you put in to advance the university. This past year alone, over 4,000 volunteers donated over 26,000 hours of volunteer service to the university to advance the university and promote its causes. This is truly remarkable when you think about all the other things that you could be doing to occupy your time in this very busy world, but to be involved and engaged with your alma mater is significant. I think alumni that have an impact in many other ways as well, you collectively are the most important group of contributors to the university. We are counting on our alumni and our friends now more than ever. As it was mentioned, we recently launched the most ambitious and comprehensive fundraising campaign in the university history, but it's not just the university history, it's SUNY history. Of all the 64 universities and colleges associated with the SUNY system, by far the Boldly Buffalo campaign is the largest. Our Boldly Buffalo, our place, our way, our future, talks about where we're going as a university. And while it touches every aspect of the university, every school, every unit, every division, and its priorities are about transforming our student experiences. It's about empowering our faculty, and it's about improving our local and global communities. The campaign for UB Law is absolutely an important part of the Boldly Buffalo campaign. The campaign for UB Law raised more than $31 million that is all part of this $650 million goal. Since we started counting in 2013, Boldly Buffalo has raised more than $454 million, thanks to many of you here in this room. And that you should be congratulated. During the reception tonight, I was actually talking with one of your fellow alum and an estate planning attorney, and we were talking about what does this current legislation that was just enacted in December have on philanthropy? What will it look like? Do we really know the answer to that question? And I'm proud to say to you, last week as we launched the Boldly Buffalo campaign, we also did on Monday, we did a 24-hour day of giving. This is something that we've done for over 5 years. It's an annual event. And last year, we had about 900 donors that raised about $98,000 in a 24-hour period. This year, post all of that legislation, we raised over $325,000 from 2,000 donors in support of UB. And so if this is any indication in regards to what philanthropy is going to be like going forward, it's not the tax incentives that motivate people to give. It's their connection and their belief in the organization that they're giving to. And so this is the message I hope that you will walk away from tonight. You know, as we really look forward to ensure our future, we know that as UB, we are stronger collectively more than as an individual. We just added 2 members of our team and University Advancement team, and they're here tonight. Jason Durford to my left is a new Senior Associate Vice President that has just joined the team from the University of Louisville. And we also have Cynthia Koo Robinson, who has joined as an Associate Vice President of Alumni Engagement and Annual Giving from the University of Cincinnati. And so I'm proud to be able to say that this team is going to help us move forward as we think about what UB's future is. And so basically, I'm going to conclude my comments by asking you this simple question. Will you be an ambassador for UB? Will you be an ambassador for your law school? That's all we're asking. We're asking you to be a spokesperson to say that I know what's happening and I believe in the direction, and the dean is doing outstanding things and the faculty are doing an incredible teaching, and it's an incredibly important profession for our community, and I ask you to be a part of it and a spokesperson for it. Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors. The Law Alumni Association gratefully acknowledges our underwriters who helped make this dinner possible. Their names are listed on the PowerPoint shows that'll be playing throughout the dinner and on the many signs on display in the foyer and in the ballroom and in our dinner program. All proceeds from this dinner benefit the activities of the Law Alumni Association, and without the generosity of our sponsors, we would not be able to provide our law students with tuition and public interest scholarships, and our members with the many social, educational, and networking programs that are organized throughout the year, both in Western New York and in our various regional chapters. Thank you all for your support. I'd also like to thank our dinner co-chairs, Elizabeth Krangel, class of 07, and Jason Ulatowski, class of 07. Our dinner committee members, Scott Becker, class of 93, Michael Hecker, class of 09, and Judge Henry Nowak, class of 1993. Thank you. Our work wouldn't be possible without the work of our executive director and vice dean, Eileen Fleischman, and the wonderful staff. Yes. The wonderful staff in the alumni and communication offices, including Vice Dean Lisa Mueller, class of 93, Assistant Gold Group Director Pat Warrington, and of course, Administrative Assistant Amy Hypnorowski. Thank you so much for all your support. I'd like to also recognize all the officers and current directors of the Law Alumni Association and the Gold Group. If you could stand, and we can recognize them for their many contributions to the law school and the Alumni Association. If you're here, please stand. Thank you for all your hard work. I do have a special thank you this year for Mark, our incoming president. As the dean mentioned, I spent the majority of this year pregnant with twins, and when they were delivered healthy and happy 4 weeks ago, and when it came down to it, the work of this board went seamlessly because Mark stepped up when I had to step off. So thank you, Mark, for everything, for what you've done. Now I'd like to welcome the new Law Alumni Association incoming directors for 2018 and 19. So if you're here, please stand. Erica Bennett, class of 2005. Nicholas DeCesaire, class of 2004. Michael Hecker, class of 2009. Richard Morrisroe, class of 2011. James O'Keefe, 07. Daniel Sarzinski, class of 99, and Diane Tiveron, class of 89. Welcome. We also have new Gold Group incoming directors for 2017-18. Donnell Gibson Jr., class of 2018. Aaron Rozowitz, class of 2017. Welcome to the Gold Group. And finally, we'd like to acknowledge some anniversaries. The Law Alumni Association congratulates the members of the class of 1958 who are celebrating 60 years, and the class of 1968 who are celebrating their golden 50-year anniversary. A full list of the names ladies are in the program. All will be receiving certificates of appreciation for their long service to the profession. Since last year's All Alumni Celebration was hugely successful, and if you missed it, you missed a good party at the Buffalo Club, we've decided to make it an annual alumni weekend, and there'll be special attention paid to reunion classes at the party. You should be receiving a save the date next week for Saturday, October 20th. Please mark your calendars and join us this fall. Now we're going to take a break for dinner, and our awards presentations will pick up after we eat, so enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Brown. I'm a member of the class of 1999 and the president-elect of the UB Law Alumni Association. Before we go to tonight's dinner, and I want to make sure that we move because we have a lot to celebrate, I want to take a moment to thank Patty Zaffron for all that she has done as the president of this association, the great leadership and the great skills that she has. So if you're looking around the room, you may see these little bright lights that are flickering up and down. My kids love them, so if you have any extras, drop them off here in the front. But the truth of the matter is it identifies who are our current law alumni members. And for everyone who doesn't have one of these lights, we would love it if you could start thinking about becoming a member of our association. There are different types of members. There's members that are year-long members, 3-year members, and of course, lifetime members. And I want you to think about helping the school because as Dean Abramowski had talked about, one of the things we do as members of the Law Alumni Association is be a mentor and help out students. And I like to, one of the things that I get personally of, satisfaction is in that role. So please think about becoming a member of our association. We have regional chapters and you receive benefits such as free or discounted admission to our social and our networking events, free New York State CLEs, and free remote access to online databases, including Hein Online and EBSCO through our online alumni portal. And most importantly, our membership dues support tuition scholarships and public interest summer fellowships for our law students. Just this past board meeting, we had a couple of great students who came to our meeting, and you just be amazed to see the lawyers in the room, how great and dynamic these law students are. And they really represent us quite well. Now, this is our 56th awards dinner, established by the Law Alumni Association's Board of Directors in 1963. The Distinguished Alumni Awards recognize the valuable contributions that the UB Law School alumni have made to their profession and to their community. In our program booklet, we have provided you with a lengthy list of our previous recipients, many of whose names you would recognize as giants in the legal community. Also in our program booklet are the acceptance remarks of tonight's honorees, all on this dais, and the highlights of their professional careers. We ask that you please take a minute to read them at your convenience. Now, the stories from our law school's history have become part of a treasure trove of information that has been compiled in an extensive oral history project initiated in 2000. The project that was funded by Lauren D. Racklin of blessed memory has recorded alumni, faculty members, and others with close ties to the law school, preserving their voices for posterity and digitally indexing their words to provide easy access for historians, researchers, and others. All 6 of our honorees have been interviewed as part of the oral history project. And tonight, we will feature a clip from each of their interviews as part of the awards presentation. And as you'll see on those big boards on the side, you'll see pictures and some talks from the individual honorees. Now, I'm going to introduce right now Liz Krangle and Jason Nulatowski, our dinner co-chairs, who are going to be presenting the awards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. It is my honor this evening to present the award for his conscientious and diligent performance in the judiciary to Honorable Craig D. Hanna, Buffalo City Court Judge. When interviewed for the oral history project, Judge Hanna explained how he relates to the participants that come before him in opioid intervention court.
Well, I tell every participant that comes in there that I am you. The difference is that I've been clean 20 years. I mean, if I was still using, I might have been right on the other side of the bench with them. So I tell them every day, the only reason why I look like this and I'm here is because I had people that gave a damn about me before I gave a damn about myself. So I'm here because I give a damn about you, and I'm going to make sure you're going to treatment whether you want to or not. Like I told someone before I came over here, I'm either going to be your best friend or your worst nightmare, because I'm going to be lurking everywhere. We're going to be involved in every part of your life, and either you go to treatment and do what you're supposed to do, or you get to wear orange. And that's my motivation. Like, you don't want to wear orange every day, do you? So why don't you take an active part in your recovery, because we're going to put everything on hold while we focus on your health. And as long as they're committed to that, and again, they're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But as long as they're committed to getting better, we're going to work with you.
There has been a lot of hand-wringing about America's opioid crisis recently, and for good reason. Overdoses have claimed the lives of more than 1,000 Erie County residents in just the past 5 years. The solutions are as varied as the causes of this tragedy, but there's one solution that is definitely working: opioid intervention court. The first one in the country was established last year by our own Judge Hanna. In opioid court, addicts who get into trouble with the law are sent into treatment immediately, with their charges being put on hold for at least 30 days. If they succeed in kicking the habit, the charges may be reduced. It's a chance at a new life. A lot of addicts have burned all their bridges, so they don't have their family anymore pulling for them, Judge Hanna told an interviewer. They don't have their girlfriend or boyfriend. Now, we're that constant contact with them, showing them that there's actually someone who loves and cares for them and wants them to do well, because that's half the battle. Our goal is keeping our participants alive. We want to make sure they change their life and get the help they need. The judge makes it work with blunt talk, tough love, and sharing his own recovery story. And the approach connects with those who stand before him scared and beaten down. City court is the entry into the criminal justice system, says Judge Hanna's former colleague on the court, Judge E. Jeanette Ogden. As a judge, you're a gatekeeper of which direction a young person may go with their lives. Because Craig is a younger man, just with his presence, he can push back on street tough without really saying anything. I see how his story affects people. That approach to the bench, setting high expectations and working hard to make a better life possible, extends also to Judge Hanna's long-time involvement with City Kids Summer Camp. The name says it all. The organization sends at-risk Buffalo kids to the rolling green hills of YMCA Camp Weona in Wyoming County, an hour and a world away from the main streets. For a week in the summer, Judge Hanna is one of the counselors, sleeping in the cabins, eating in the mess hall, helping teach important life skills in between the kayaking, rock climbing, fishing, swimming, and campfires. The judge is a great role model for the kids, and that's what they need, says Chris Del Prince, who co-directs the camp with Judge Hanna. He's out there interacting with them, developing relationships with the kids. We're interacting with the kids 24/7 for the whole 5 days that we're at camp. We try not to tell people in the beginning that he's a judge, Del Prince says. Once they find out, they can't believe it. But what we're really doing is instilling in them the idea that they can be anything they want. The first couple nights, the kids are homesick, a little resistant, Judge Hanna says. But by the last night, they're crying because they don't want to go home. You just see a tremendous change in them. Most of us never know how our work will change lives. Judge Hanna and those around them see those changes every day. As we celebrate all the lives his leadership has turned around, We are glad this evening to present the Judiciary Award to the Honorable Craig D. Hanna.
Good evening. Douglas Dimitrov, partner at Phillips Lytle, is this year's recipient of our award for excellence in private practice. During his oral history interview, Doug explained how he came back to live in the city he has grown to love.
What attracted me to Phillips Lytle? Here's the real story. I applied to Phillips Lytle twice while I was in law school, for a summer job first and then for a permanent position. I was rejected both times. And I remind some of the older partners here about that. But I came back to Buffalo. So when my wife finished her medical school, we had a decision to make, where were we going to settle. And I was working in New York City because law school is less, only 3 years, med school is 4. Working in New York City, loving it, but she really said, you know, although she wasn't from Buffalo, Buffalo's a nicer place to be. We had our first child at that point, so we had a very, brand new baby, and she said, I don't think we can live here in New York City. It's not an easy place to have start a family. So, and I know a lot of people do that, but it wasn't necessarily for us. So we moved back to Buffalo. She said, I like Buffalo. So we came here, and given the experience I had in New York City with the firm there, I knew I wanted to be at a firm that had a practice that was somewhat similar, and Phillips Lytle offered that, and I interviewed, and I don't really know whether they, at the time, realized that I had previously interviewed twice and was rejected, but in the end, they hired me, and the rest is history.
That dark day in January 1991 was tough for all of us. But as Doug Dimitrov watched with a gang of friends as the Buffalo Bills lost Super Bowl 25, he was climbing the walls. He's a crazy Bills fan, a huge, passionate fan, says one of those friends, Pete Augustine, and he was beside himself watching the game. He couldn't even eat the nachos. And when it was over, he was devastated. I'm guessing, Doug, it was because you didn't have the nachos and not because of a certain missed field goal. But that's passion for you. Passion for the Bills, but more importantly, passion for Buffalo. It's the kind of intensity that Doug brings to everything he does, to his law practice, to his community service, and to his untiring advocacy for Western New York. At Phillips Lytle, in addition to commercial real estate work and work on public-private partnerships, he has built an expertise in telecommunications law into a major part of the firm. He's like a rock star in this space, says his colleague, Adam Walters. You walk into a room with Doug in the telecom world, and people stop and take notice. He is relentlessly focused on his clients and what they need. Doug has also put that energy to good use in helping to engineer the turnaround of Buffalo's economic fortunes. As the founder of the New Millennium Group for Young Professionals, and now as a board member of the economic development engine Invest Buffalo Niagara, he helps bring people together and move the region forward, sometimes one person at a time. If you're sitting on a plane coming back to Buffalo, Walter says, he's talking to you about what you're doing in Buffalo. He's telling you what a wonderful place it is, how you should move here, about our great quality of living. He's a passionate advocate for the region. Tom Kucharski, president and CEO of Invest Buffalo Niagara, says he sees Doug leading by example in that important work. As our community is transitioning and a lot of captains of industry and elder statesmen are moving on, we're looking to the next wave of leadership, Kucharski says. Doug represents the finest of the next group that's coming up. He works so hard, and he puts his whole self into it. And that example gets a lot of other folks involved in what's important in the community. When you deal with attorneys, Kucharski says, the good ones present analysis and options, but they're also residents and community members. and they're not afraid to say what they think is best for the community. Doug has a gift for taking an issue that is complex, relating with regulations, and making it very conversational and easy for all of us to understand what the greater issue is. He's always looking at the bigger picture, saying, here's what we need to consider, and here's how we can find a way to do it. That energy has also extended to his legal alma mater. Doug has shown extraordinary leadership in the School of Law. He helped found the Gold Group for graduates of the last decade, and he currently chairs the Dean's Advisory Council, a particularly important role as we welcome our new dean. We appreciate his wise counsel. We are lucky as a city to have his energy, and we salute the exemplary practice he has developed as a leader in Buffalo's legal community. And so for his leadership by example as a private practitioner, please join me in congratulating Douglas W. Dimitrov for this distinguished alumnus award. The award for community service is presented this evening to Stephen J. Weiss, managing partner at Kanan, Heyman, and Weiss, where he focuses his practice on affordable housing law. In his oral history interview, Steve spoke about the obligation of lawyers to advocate for social justice.
I feel personally enriched by being able to contribute to organizations that have meaning to me and to our community. And I feel that it's really part of my everyday activity. I actually feel that when I first was told about this award, I questioned why it's even worthy of distinction, because there's so many lawyers that I know of who participate in community activities. I think that that's the one thing that we think about in law school. It's the notion of social justice. And it's something that is shared as law students, and I think UB does a great job promoting it. And so it's enriching to me as an individual to participate in community activities, but I also think that it's part of what it means to be a lawyer. I think that we look at social justice, we look at community activities as being part of our daily activity. And that's something that I really enjoy.
At Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center, they have a tradition called rounding. Once a month they do this, but also on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving, those times when it's especially bleak to be a patient in a cancer hospital. On rounding days, the senior leadership, including the board of directors, walk the corridors talking to the staff, the patients, and their families, just hearing how it's going with them, bringing a hopeful word, maybe a little gift here and there. Not everybody shows up to do this. Those are big family days after all. But Steve Weiss, who's on Roswell's board, is always there. Sometimes he even brings Ellen and their daughters along too. He's an incredible man, one of the most compassionate people I know, says Dr. Candace Johnson, Roswell's CEO. People walk through our doors and they're scared. There's lots of emotion in this building all the time. There are families waiting for test results. There are people who are really sick in the hospital. A board member doesn't really get involved in all of that, but Steve wants to participate at all levels. That compassion is reflected in the specialty Steve has chosen for his law practice, the Byzantine world of financing the construction of affordable housing. His stock in trade is the tax-exempt bonds, tax credits, and other incentives that make it possible for developers to build nice, affordable places where low-income people can live. It's a mission as much as a practice. Friends and colleagues alike point to the spiritual underpinnings of Steve's life and work. His friend Yosef Eden, who lives in Israel, tells of arriving in Buffalo for a visit on a miserably cold, snowy day one January, or this year it could have been April. It was a Shabbat morning. Steve picked him up at the airport, and they drove right to a building where a small group of older men had gathered. The two of them made 10, the complete minyan they needed in order to have their Shabbat prayers. I can't begin to describe how happy and thrilled those men were, Eden says. He never misses an opportunity to help and to give. That impulse has played out well in Steve's work on behalf of the Jewish community here in Western New York. As president of the Buffalo Jewish Federation, Steve has worked with the new executive director, Rob Goldberg, to build a new spirit of teamwork and unity among the Federation's many initiatives. Steve really has the ability to focus on the individual person, says his partner and friend, Stephen Yanati. He can meet somebody and understand where they have a need and try to fill that need. When he and Ellen were the chairs of the Federation's annual campaign, he really made it a point to try to sit down in person with donors, have a sandwich or a cup of coffee with people. He writes them notes. He sends them a book. That means a lot to people. The spiritual aspect is a constant in his life. Steve is faithful to his belief that we are connected and we need to work for the common good, says friend Amy Gomlich. To have conversations with him is like a shaman. He allows that sixth sense, the universe, to influence his life. Not your typical lawyer. And so, for his many contributions through his work and his life for the betterment of our community, it is my pleasure to present this Distinguished Alumnus Award to Stephen J. Weiss.
Next, we honor Karen L. Nicholson, Chief Executive Officer for the Center for Elder Law. She has groupies for her extraordinary commitment to public service. In her interview, Karen applauded UB School of Law students' commitment to access to justice.
The people that are coming out of UB Law that come to us, they're so passionate about doing good in the wider world, and not all of them end up going into legal services. One of our very good law students last year, I think, wants to work at a big firm, but she came because she wanted the experience of working in legal services, and she had heard about legal services at the law school and kind of thought, well, this is something important to learn about. And that is going to carry with students, even if they don't go into legal services. They are going to volunteer. They're going to be our pro bono volunteers in a few years. They're going to donate to the organizations. They understand the importance of access to justice for everyone, not just for people who can afford an attorney.
Karen loved being a staff attorney at Legal Services for the Elderly. It's the only thing she ever wanted to do, says her spouse, Tom Smith, who met Karen at the law school. She loved being a lawyer in court and helping her clients. Sometimes they would bring her little gifts of gratitude, like the Seneca Nation client who gave her a letter opener decorated with beautiful beadwork. When she was initially asked, she wasn't sure about taking on the leadership of the organization, but Western New York's most vulnerable populations should be glad she did. Under Karen's leadership, the organization, now the Center for Elder Law and Justice, has seen its staff grow from 12 to 49, and its income rise from less than $500,000 to over $4 million annually. More importantly, the center continues to serve many thousands of elderly, disabled, and low-income clients, advocating for them in healthcare system, working to stop elder abuse, practicing housing and consumer protection law for those who need it the most. Karen has amazing vision and enthusiasm, says the center's board chair, Cindy Vance. She has reached out to the community with new programs and a lot of new partnerships. That's why she went to law school, after all, to help people. And where others might be risking burnout, Karen has sustained that commitment and kept it growing. She never stops thinking about her job and her work, her husband says. All of her energy goes into that office, keeping it going, improving it, taking care of her staff. She is the most dedicated, most compassionate person I know. And a spark plug to boot, says her friend and colleague Jennifer Scharf. If you give Karen an idea, she runs with it. You only have to mention it once. She's the best work partner you could ask for, and she's one of the most loyal people you'll ever meet. That theme of loyalty and friendship runs through Karen's life. She's part of a tight group of friends who meet to discuss significant articles. It used to be a book club, but nobody had time for that. They meet at her home, sometimes in the pool, multitasking. She's a connector, says her friend Bridget O'Connell. Someone who can suggest fruitful, practical collaborations between groups, organizations, and friends. And she's so supportive of her staff. She points out opportunities and encourages them to participate meaningfully in the legal community and the larger community. They've created a culture in their office that promotes cooperation and collegiality with the larger bar and community. On a personal level, O'Connell says, Karen has been a great comfort to innumerable friends and colleagues as they try to help aging parents navigate the complexities of nursing homes, hospitals, and hospice care. She'll have that empathy-filled discussion and be totally present for people, whether that conversation needs to take place in hallways, corners of restaurants, whatever. She's present, tuned in, and helpful no matter what might be going on around you. The Center for Elder Law and Justice has as its mission to improve the quality of life for the elderly, disabled, and low-income persons, to use the legal system to assure that our clients may live independently and with dignity. With its high proportion of older residents, Western New York sorely needs that mission. And so this evening, we recognize a woman who leads with her heart in that important work. Please join me in honoring Karen Nicholson with our Distinguished Alumna Award for her commitment to public service.
We are presenting the award for business achievement as a lawyer to Bradley M. Gayton, Group Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer, and General Counsel for Ford Motor Company in Dearborn, Michigan. When interviewed, Bradley described why his in-house job continues to engage him.
So the thing that really got me interested in practicing in-house and doing corporate law was the realization that you get to work on problems from inception until they're resolved. And sometimes from inception until you actually see them in the products that the company is producing. And the idea of being able to be accountable and live with the legal decisions I was making from cradle to grave is incredibly appealing, as opposed to maybe just dealing on discrete issues. So that's what appealed to me, and it's when I went to law school, I didn't anticipate that it would be a place that I'd want to practice. I just assumed that I would want to be in a law firm, but just so thankful for the opportunity to work at Ford and serve in-house.
So you think you have a crushing workload? Put yourself in Bradley Gayton's shoes. At Ford Motor Company, Bradley oversees one of the largest in-house corporate legal departments in the world. With 400 lawyers, they deal with everything from intellectual property to data privacy, from consumer safety issues to environmental regulations. But it's how he manages that huge portfolio that makes all the difference. For one thing, he's deeply committed to the value of a diverse staff, and his office reflects that. Maybe that comes in part from living in a house with 4 strong women, his wife Lisa, and their 3 daughters. For another, Bradley is all about collaboration. He runs the show, but he does it by building relationships rather than issuing orders. When there's a staff meeting, he's careful not to sit at the head of the table. He sees himself as a person whose job is to help people, serve them, mentor them, and support them, says Michael Pricer, who manages the Ford relationship globally for his firm KPMG. If you're purposeful, then you're valuable. He doesn't come with preconceived answers all the time, and his openness to others' thinking is what makes him so attractive. And where so often attorneys are in a position of saying no, of finding reasons an idea can't go forward, Bradley makes it a point to find a way to yes. Bradley is a tsunami, says another outside counsel, Joanne Fay-Curry. He's a very innovative person. As lawyers, we're trained to issue spot, to find all the issues, identify the pitfalls, show why something won't work. But don't go into a meeting and tell Bradley why something can't get done. He wants people to think how we can get things done. He approaches problems, tasks. He approaches life from the positive as opposed to the negative. His ability to embrace the art of the possible distinguishes him from many other lawyers, Pricer says. He really believes that nothing is impossible, and he's all about the art of the possible. Bradley is unique in the sense that when you have him as a client, a lot of that business relationship is based on the personal, says Kevin Lipson, another colleague and friend. He places a lot of value on personal relationships and personal integrity. A little flair goes a long way too. Bradley is known around Ford headquarters and as somewhat of a style icon, and his signature style shows a man who's pretty darn sure of himself. Bradley did make sure to get a haircut and try to pick out a good tie for tonight, because I know he'd be reading this part of your bio. There are his shirts, for example, embroidered not with his initials, but with his entire signature down near the belt line. And his collection of cufflinks and those bow ties. The last time I saw him, Lipson reports, Bradley was wearing a polka dot bow tie, a striped shirt, plaid pants, and a jacket in another pattern. You couldn't miss him. Go big or go home. That's how he rolls. And so, for his superlative performance and high integrity in the world of business, I'm proud to present this Distinguished Alumnus Award to our friend, Bradley M. Gayden.
Tonight we present our award for outstanding service to the community by a non-alumnus to Honorable Frank P. Geraci Jr., Chief United States District Judge for the Western District of New York. In his oral history interview, he discussed how he has addressed the lack of diversity on jury panels.
One of the things I noticed in coming over to district court, which I also saw in state court, was a lack of diversity in our jury panels. So consequently, for years, they've been trying to diversify the jury panels here in the Western District of New York. In fact, in federal courts, they only use two source lists. That's voter registration list and DMV records. In New York State uses, in addition, Department of Labor records, Department of Social Service records, and the Department of Taxation records, which expands the pool tremendously. We've done that now in the Western District of New York, and we are the first district in the country to do that. So we have a very broad now base of potential jurors in our community, and we're seeing a tremendous increase in the number of minorities.
It's one thing to run your courtroom efficiently. It's another to do it with style and unflinching respect. But if you watch Judge Geraci in action in U.S. District Court, whether it's in Rochester or in Buffalo, that's what you'll see. If somebody comes before him in shackles, he'll have those shackles taken off, says his clerk of court, Mary Lowenguth. He can be firm when it's necessary, but he'll always call people Mr. and treat them with dignity. Case in point, the day last year when Judge Geraci sentenced a young defendant to 20 years in prison for planning an ISIS-inspired attack on New Year's Eve at a bar in Rochester. The sentence didn't sit so well, and the defendant started ranting. As U.S. Marshals were removing him from the courtroom, he had 2 last words for the judge. Expletive, you. Judge Tracy didn't miss a beat. Motion denied, he said. He's a favorite with jurors as well. They deliver a verdict and the dust settles. He'll then meet with them in the jury room and debrief a little, asking them about their experience. They routinely say that it's the best thing about jury duty. Judge Tracy's belief in the justice system as a force for good shows through in his work with Rochester Teen Court, a peer court that he founded and fought to get funding for. The goal is to set kids straight before they find themselves in serious trouble, and it has worked admirably. The judge and his wife, Carla Peterson, have 4 kids, and they all spent a lot of time on baseball diamonds as they were growing up. Elaine Spall, a Rochester City Council member and director of the youth center there, says her favorite memory is seeing Frank on opening day at Little League Field. He coached, he cooked hot dogs, he probably helped mow the field at some point. He's just a playful, wonderful man. His sense of humor comes in handy. For example, when the boss asked him to MC the show when the Second Circuit gathered to roast and toast the year's newly installed judges. Judge Tracy sweated it out, but came through like a trooper. Reports are that even Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was in attendance, laughed out loud. Simply put, Judge Tracy always comes through for his colleagues, his family, and friends. He writes tons of letters of recommendation. He babysits the grandkids. With a big family, says friend Paul Reardon, it was always hard to make plans because he always had to go to somebody's christening or confirmation. He is really the rock in his family, like a godfather, but without the criminal activity. He came through, too, when Reardon was getting married down in Westchester County. The plan was that a downstate judge would help officiate, but that Thursday, the downstate judge got violently ill and ended up in a hospital. The wedding was Saturday. Reardon called his friend for advice. The Dracys were leaving Sunday for a big family vacation, but the judge flew down, did the wedding, and was back in time for the family trip. Judge Tracy is a proud alumnus of the University of Dayton, both undergraduate and law school. But he has made a huge difference in upstate New York, and we're proud to claim him as our own. And so, for outstanding service to the community by a non-alumnus, we're proud tonight to give this award to the Honorable Frank P. Geraci, Jr.
Well, everyone, that concludes our program this evening. Thank you so much for attending. We're right on schedule, and we hope to see you all next year. Thank you for supporting the law school.